you can have a positive impact on society, and your body composition shouldn't matter, right? Furthermore, you can feel really good about yourself and what you see in the mirror. And more importantly than that, when you wake up in the morning, when you walk outside of your home and you're moving around, you can feel a lot of joy within your body and not have abs and not be, a chiseled chest or like the world's like most beautiful like arms or whatever the case may be.
Welcome to the Your Next Move podcast. Y'all, I have a long-time friend with me today. A long-time friend. He calls himself the godfather of care culture. I call him Cell. He's known as Coach P for short. He's an NYC-based writer, strength coach, Nike running coach, and founder and CEO of Fit For Us, a creative agency that innovates at the intersection of wellness and culture. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So I think you're super multifaceted. You do all of the things. How do you generally introduce yourself?
As a bad bitch.
As a bad bitch, really?
Very much so.
Very much so.
I think to be frank, I just coach Percell Dugger, Coach P. Writing is very much something that I've continued to do. I journal daily. I've done it since I was a kid. And my understanding of language and how to effectively communicate and tell a story around the work that I do is super important. But also I think in terms of just how I show up in spaces, I very much aim to be someone who can bring people together through language and through storytelling. But I wouldn't call myself a storyteller, but coaching is very much for me an opportunity to tell a story around movement, around community, around health equity. So Coach P is something that like, it just stuck. I never called myself P ever. That's not like a nickname. You never called me P before, right?
Never.
But I feel like, I don't know when it was, but at some point people just started calling me P. And I was like, well, I've been Coach Doug, I've been Coach Dugger, I've been Coach Percell. Coach P just sounds a lot more fluid.
Got it. So can you explain care culture?
Yeah, I think, recognizing that in our society, there are a series of macro health disparities that disproportionately impact Black and brown people, whether we're talking about maternal health, diabetes, heart disease, et cetera. But I think, oftentimes when we think about healthcare, it's really much through the lens of, profit, where people are seen as more like patients and like transactions, and the level or the idea of care and being intentional about how we care for individuals, how we care for communities goes very much lost, because if it existed, then these macro health disparities wouldn't be a thing. They wouldn't exist. So I think for me, it's really important to center not just the Black experience and bring joy and highlight joy in there, but also to recognize and name in words and in language that care is something that's missing. And I want to be, at the forefront of ensuring that care goes beyond just like the word, but in terms of actually providing people with support, resources, and access and awareness in ways that we are oftentimes kind of left out of that equation.
When did you start doing some of this work? Because I feel like this is something that when I think of someone who's a trainer or identify as a coach, like I'm not hearing terms like this. I'm not hearing the language that's around this. And it's so much deeper than just getting in shape.
Yeah. I mean, I think indirectly, I had always been passionate about the idea of just like supporting the idea of health equity, right? I think naming it and telling a story around it really became intentional when Fit For Us was founded. Okay. That Self magazine cover back in 2020 really shed light on, a time in which our country, our society was really struggling with the idea of what it meant to be a community, what justice felt like, what equity was. I think for me, it was really unfortunate to see gyms kind of speaking out on like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor when, these gyms simultaneously weren't really doing much to address health equity and how heart disease is like the number one killer in our communities. But simultaneously, you walk in a lot of these gyms and they're not often found in Black and brown neighborhoods, right? They're not often found in neighborhoods where there's low income working class families, low education levels. So like, for me, although these things might exist in terms of income levels being what they were, education levels, it's not as though joy doesn't exist in those neighborhoods. It's not as though happiness and people who live there aren't worthy of quality resources and experiences. And it's not as though we haven't been manifesting that for ourselves in our own creative ways. So I think for me, it really became intentional about not just naming that, but building out a very strategic and intentional universe where anyone at any, intersection or any end of the spectrum really could tap into a sustainable and accessible resource that is like wellness and care.
I appreciate that. When I listened to your interview with Jillian Michaels.
Man, that was interesting.
I was so proud of you as my friend.
Really?
I was. Because I listened to like a good amount of things that you do, but like I don't get everything.
Okay.
But that one I listened to and I was so proud of you as my friend because I felt like how you advocated for the Black community in such a meaningful way and didn't back down to like what the Black experience is when it comes to health and like the systemic things that we've gone through as a people and how that's manifest. And sometimes it's not just as simple as like, don't eat takeout anymore.
Yeah, I think it's frustrating because, Jillian Michaels is a very reputable, credible source, right? And a figure in our industry. Simultaneously, she doesn't really have the language or really understand how someone like a Lizzo shows up in spaces and why it's important for people to really embrace her and celebrate her, right? Because she's looking at it from this traditional standpoint of like, she's plus size and she needs to lose weight. And why wouldn't you want to listen to somebody like me? And it's like, well, because traditionally people like you don't have people like me in, their best interest.
Exactly.
Period. And it's like, but shame on you for being a coach and not having a language and being willing to figure out how you can best serve your community. Because before you're white, before you're a woman, like all those things are true, but you're also someone who committed to this idea of supporting people in their health journey. So like, shame on you for being critical and for creating a space where people don't feel connected to you. And more importantly than that, I want to shed light on the people who are, like myself and others.
It's so different because I think we went through a phase of weight loss was all like the Biggest Loser. It was revenge body. It was the fat camp shows. Everything was very much like, you don't like where you are for whatever reason. Right. So we are going to capitalize on how bad you feel, how overweight you are, how you can't wear the clothes that you want. And we're going to transform you into like almost like a cookie cutter, like this is what fitness, this is what health looks like. Let's just literally beat your mind and your body until you get here.
Yeah. The wild thing is that, my industry would lead you to believe that there's no such thing as a plus size person who was happy. Right. Like, but failing to recognize that, like, technically speaking, like Martin Luther King was plus size, right? Technically speaking, like Andre Talley, who's like a huge deal within like the fashion like industry, right? Died at 70 plus something years old, plus size individual, right? You can't tell me that Jill Scott isn't one of the most beautiful women in the world, right? Furthermore, let's take celebrity out of it. My mama, my 3 sisters, people in my family, aunts, uncles, cousins, people we know in our community, you can have a positive impact on society and your body composition shouldn't matter, right? Furthermore, you can feel really good about yourself and what you see in the mirror. And more importantly than that, when you wake up in the morning, when you walk outside of your home and you're moving around, you can feel a lot of joy within your body and not have abs and not be, a chiseled chest or like the world's like most beautiful like arms or whatever the case may be. And I think, the fitness industry really is predatory in that it takes advantage. It attempts to make people feel less than because they don't fit into this ideal, lens or a standard of beauty. But in reality, that's just rooted in like shaming people. And it's like, I think for me anyway, I really just want to celebrate the fact that like, there's a lot of joy in my community. There's a lot of joy in people. And I want to celebrate that at every chance that I get. And I really don't care too much about like whether or not you weigh this amount or your jeans fit like this. It's like you can love yourself. And more importantly than that, loving yourself, loving others can have a far greater impact on society than like, oh, you got abs and some really nice biceps. Like nobody cares at the end of the day.
I love that. I so appreciate that. I think as someone I've definitely struggled with body image. I think I've called you crying. Yeah. At least 3 to 4 times.
It's been some times.
It's been some times about like struggling to lose weight, struggling to get back in shape, whether I had injuries or like last year I had brain surgery and like the physical part of that. Like afterwards, I feel like health for me personally has shifted multiple times. What do you wish more people knew about their health?
I wish people knew that a lot of diseases or like just situations that people are navigating aren't always visible. Like you can on paper check every box. Yeah. You can show up in a room and look like you're doing well and thriving, but we can just look at some of the previous and more recent deaths that we've experienced in society, I mean, just in our culture over the past like 6 months to a year of people who like were externally and outwardly facing, appearing to be happy, at peace and experiencing joy in all the ways, but deep down inside they were suffering.
Yeah.
Right. And I think care culture is about this idea, wellness and fitness coaches say that in order for you to be happy, you have to have this product or look like this, right? It's the reason why people feel like they got to get in shape before they go to the gym, right? Whereas like in reality, I see people laughing in the background. They thought that was a really good quote, but
we'll use that one.
Yeah. But the reality is that care culture recognizes that upon arrival that you're not well.
Yeah.
However, we have everything that you need in order to experience health equity, experience equitable outcome, experience joy and happiness in a sustainable and accessible way upon your arrival. So, for me, I think about how, people would say like the doors of the church are always open, and you get there and they be like, you got to dress like this, you got to talk like this, you got to do that. And it's like, no. Like the doors of this gym, the doors of this space are always open. And I really don't care how you get there. And I really don't care about, what your experience was before you got here. Upon arrival, you'll receive the things that you need to be cared for, to belong, to feel like you belong to, and then furthermore, to be able to thrive once you leave the space.
That's so important. I think like this year I turned 36 in a few months.
Shout out to 36.
Shout out to 36.
Man, you a baddie at 36?
Hello, goodbye, good morning, of course. But I feel like one of the things I've learned about health also, obviously it's not just weight loss,
right,
but the invisible part of the things that we struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, going through the brain surgery experience and the recovery of it, I think humbled me to no end.
Yeah.
About what health actually feels like, what it looks like. And also, I think I was one of those people who was privately struggling. I was in pain for over 3 years and nobody knew.
Right.
I had a speaking engagement the weekend, 2 days before I went and had brain surgery.
Wow.
And I was on stage in pain. My surgeon wanted to do it beforehand. And I was like, so I kind of have this speaking gig that I kind of committed to.
Right.
So I'm going to do that right quick. And he's like, aren't you going to be in pain? I was like, I committed to it. So I went, I flew, and like flying and all the things like put me in more pain.
Okay.
I spoke in Charlotte, then came back. I think I got back Sunday. I prepared Monday morning and I went in for surgery Tuesday.
Wow.
And like, cause I just showed up, but nobody knew I was in pain.
Right.
I never talked about it. I didn't even tell anybody I had brain surgery until this year, like almost 9 months after it happened. Right. But health is so much more than just like the looks. It's all of the other things. And I think we also have struggles now that we didn't, like the reason why I had brain surgery, it had nothing to do with me not being healthy. My body just decided to do something crazy neurologically.
Right.
And I had no choice. And I think as adults now we have all these aches, these pains, these ailments.
Yeah. It's real.
And we have to cope and give ourselves some TLC along the way.
No, for sure. I think oftentimes we're made to believe that, hey, look, if you got abs, right, if you go to the gym X amount of times a week, if you move around, if you go for a run, you are a healthy person. And in reality, it's like, it's not the case.
Not at all.
It's certainly not the case. I'm proud of you, Kay, but I think the beautiful thing about your story is that, your brand and the idea of like manifesting, I think I love that word manifesting because it truly means to like work, to cultivate, to like, to develop in a very intentional and hands-on way. Right. And not just like by happenstance or to get lucky. Mm-hmm. And I think care is something that is manifested. Self-care is not something that is just obtained through buying somebody's book or someone's sage or someone's, candles or like their eucalyptus mint towels or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. It's like self-care is manifested through work and it's being intentional. And sometimes it don't look pretty, but it's always worth it. And I want to give you your flowers and name that you've been doing an amazing job. And I'm really, really happy for you.
I appreciate that. I think on a past episode with Ariel, Jim Hookie, Ariel.
That's the homie. We grabbing brunch on Sunday. I mean, me, her, and a bunch of other homies in the network.
I love it. So she talked about on our episode about self-care versus self-soothe.
Yeah.
And I think we're in a culture where self-soothing is what we normally do, but we're actually not caring for ourselves. We pacify, we make ourselves feel better. Even for me, like I know last year, I self-soothed for like the whole year. Mm-hmm. I did not care and actually do the things that were going to make me feel better, like actually improve my health.
Yep.
I just wanted to put a Band-Aid. I wanted to feel comfortable.
Yep.
So everything for me was about how can I just feel good right now?
In this moment, right.
But now this year I'm like, all right, Kim, like let's get it together. I got the Peloton. I'm working out again. I'm doing a little bit more. But last year was just like, I need to feel good.
Yeah.
I don't want to be uncomfortable because I was uncomfortable every day in pain.
I think something I recognize and I often name to my clients is if you just want a quick fix of your situation, you actually don't need me to be here. right? Like if you just want to jumpstart and get something going, you could go on YouTube and you can go on the Nike Run Club, Nike Training Club app today.
You get a 21-day plan.
Right now. Right?
Do the detox.
And not even have to pay for it, right?
Yes.
If you want long-term sustainable changes that you can have access to and then continue to tap into for the duration of your life, that's what care is, right? And it meets you wherever you are, but it's something that you can do in a very evergreen way. That's why I love running so much, because it's the most accessible sport. Like, I don't need a hoop, a court, a ball. I need to go outside, have a floor and some sneakers, and I can get to it.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of caring for yourself should very much reflect that, right? It should be something that's sustainable for the long term and very much accessible based upon like where I'm at currently and how I'm showing up. And I think thinking long term and intentionally about your care and how you care for yourself in spaces is very much a way to have an overturned outcome and not just simply like get by in the moment so you can sleep at night. It's like, all right, cool. You might have gotten through that Wednesday night, not Thursday night, but like, how are you going to get through this quarter, this next 6 months, this year, if this is your habit, if this is your approach? And kudos to you for figuring that out.
I don't think I figured it out now. Like, I'm not going to say that.
I mean,
but I'd say that it's top of mind because I think, especially as an entrepreneur, we talk a lot about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
It's understanding that I need to fuel myself so that I can do other things. There are no more sick days. If I'm not working, if I'm not okay,
Right.
what am I going to do? Like, when I had surgery, I was very fortunate that I had a friend who did very similar work.
Right.
And I had about 2 weeks to get my stuff together. And I was like, so we're going to put all my clients on this retainer. They are doing a special project in her subject matter expertise.
Right.
And I was able to be away for like 6 weeks. And she ran my entire company for that time period.
Man.
But I'm just very fortunate that I had a friend who
was able
is
to do that.
basically just like me,
Right.
who can step in and do my thing. She managed my assistant. But when I think about health now, it's so much more like, okay, I need to be healthy to do all of the things in order to function. So I'd love to ask you more of a personal question.
Shoot.
So I know you're an athlete, you're an entrepreneur, and you're doing all the things. Like, you're a multi-hyphenate slasher. Where do you struggle when it comes to your own well-being?
I struggle with turning my brain off. I think for me, and I have to like unlearn this over time. I've gotten better at it, but I think so much of my identity is tied to my work. To the point where if in order to feel like a level of like just being content and being secure, I feel like I have to see a result. And I feel like the best way to get results is through really owning a process in a very hands-on and intentional way. But oftentimes how that manifests itself and what that plays out to is me getting ready and being very intentional about going to sleep. But then when I get to bed, it's like I'm dreaming about work and I'm not actually having very restful sleep. Then I'll wake up and the first thing I do is get my laptop open up my phone, open my notes app, jot down the first thing I'm thinking of because I had this really great thought or dream or idea in my sleep. And, to be fair and transparent, it has paid off dividends. But I recognize that it also creates disconnects in moments where I should be attempting to recover. In fitness, we call it decondition, right? It's a period of time after you have, competed in a very like taxing moment, whether it be a race, a marathon, for that example, the off season, you give your body a chance to kind of decondition. So that way it can be optimally primed to get in shape so that it can have a greater adaptation, a greater change and a positive result. I struggle with giving myself those long-term like rest periods. I'm really big on microdosing, and that's how I've gotten better at caring for myself. And that I'll do things like nap during the day. I'll do things where I'll put my phone down, I'll put a book down, or I pick up a book, or I'll just sit in silence and just practice like some breathing exercises to kind of give myself a reset, to the point where that's been really, really helpful. But I recognize that long-term, as we were talking about earlier, it is important for me to take a more elongated break from my work so that way I can come back to it, feel restored and like refreshed, and not simply just like, hey, everyone, take care of yourself. And meanwhile, I'm the guy who's like taking care of himself enough, right?
Yeah.
But I'm doing
There's enough to get by and continue to show up every single day, but never actually rest.
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, it's afforded me some really, really great opportunities. I just recognize that, me aging is not like a bad thing. Like I'm a young guy. I feel really good in my body. I also just recognize that as I age and as I grow and scale, ideally as a CEO and as a founder, I want to be able to scale and have a team to support the vision of the work that we do collectively, and not have to be on every call and take every meeting and look at every deck and write every single word of every single, campaign or ad or strategy. But it's going to take time. But I'm mindful of it. I think I've been doing a better job of implementing it. But if there was an area for growth for me, it would definitely be in terms of just making sure that my actual sleep is like, and my long-term rest, like vacationing, like I haven't done that in years. Like a real one. Like I'm going to go away. I'm not going to bring my laptop. I'm not going to touch my phone. I'm not going to be like, like I'm just going to sit with myself and do nothing. I haven't done that in quite some time.
Got it. So why did you start Fit for Us? And what is Fit for Us?
Fit for Us initially started off as more like a call to action. It was like an activism-based like group chat for Black trainers who were really looking to just bring about some level of like awareness and change in our industry. I very shortly realized that although that's important and needed, that work is not the capabilities that we have as a collective were greater than that. So we evolved into a creative agency. We've been a creative agency now since 2021. Our biggest clients are Meta, Kind, and Mom Body. Okay. And I was Kind as in Kind snacks, not like they make bars.
Yeah.
They're really
I've had them. They're good.
Yeah, they're fire. Shameless plug, but not really. I have to say, we just recognize that in terms of advocating for health equity through the lens of storytelling and advertising and marketing, that a number of brands struggle with that kind of storytelling. But more importantly than that, we know it better than anybody else because we really do exist at the centers and the margins of our industry, whether we're talking about Black OBGYNs, Black registered dietitians, physical therapists, trainers, coaches, et cetera. So we really do have the talent in terms of the network to kind of execute in a very, very high level, but simultaneously, the vision of how we articulate around the work and the storytelling capabilities that connect or the outcome is health equity, we do a great job with. So anything that touches wellness, indoor fitness, health related, we are excited to narrate around on behalf of our partners. And then subsequently, what we've been doing is more like community-based programming and events through the care community, which is basically Fit for Us's program strategy for community-based events, addressing through workshops, of course, interactive workshops that address like maternal health disparities. We have an event coming up around heart disease and mental health awareness. So it's just about how do we creatively create intentional workshops that help people have a very hands-on learning and unlearning experience with regards to whether it be their mental health, maternal health disparities, et cetera. And it's been going great. Our partners are really excited to work with us. We're a very, very lean team, but we're able to move really, really fast. And I think in terms of like a capability standpoint, whether it's executing an event, identifying talent, coming up with a creative strategy, a PR campaign, like we really do show up in a number of macro ways that are super impactful, both for the community primarily, and then secondarily for our partners that I'm really excited about. Why did I do it? Because I could. I didn't really feel like, all I knew was that when I saw Equinox, New York Sports Clubs, and all these other brands, talking about Black Lives Matter, I'm like, y'all barely like y'all Black employees. And I don't say that in terms of, like I worked there, right?
Yeah.
Like I have real experiences with these companies as an employee, and I recognize that the pay isn't equitable, right? The resources and benefits of working at a place as an independent contractor is just essentially aren't equitable. And then simultaneously, I know that they are not investing in those coaches and the people in my industry in a way that's fruitful and nor sustainable for anyone other than themselves. So no, you don't care about my community because you don't even treat your Black and brown employees well. So for me, that was more so an opportunity that I saw to really impact my industry by saying, hey, this is how we actually, instead of, looking at y'all and say, y'all could do a better job, I'm just going to look at y'all and say, I'm just going to speak really loud. And I think in doing so, we've been able to really center joy within our community and not just simply have these very daunting, sometimes highbrow and exclusive kind of conversations around like health equity. Like I feel like there are other folks within my industry, but every time they show up in spaces, it gives you the impression that like you got to be like Vogue adjacent or like you got to be on like the cover of Elle magazine. It's like, that's not real care. That's not wellness, right? Like for some people it might be, and that's cool. But I think ultimately the impact that I want to have is on the greater community. And it's not limited to, you got a Telfare bag and, you Givenchy or whatever that other nonsense people wear these days. It's very much about like community health. And yeah, I think I also recognize that like I got two parents. My mom is a pastor. My dad is a social worker. He, has been an addict, reformed for a number of years, almost as long as I've been alive. And it's like understanding that care isn't, people might be inclusive in terms of body positivity, but how do you feel about folks in the queer community, right? Yeah. People might be inclusive in terms of like, oh, it's dope, like queer folks, and yeah, cool, and I'm an advocate for body positivity. All right, cool. How you feel about addicts, right? And people who deal with substance abuse, right? Because to me, I see how the world kind of vilifies people who like live with STIs. Like they look at them like they're less than. And in my opinion, it's like caring for folks is very much around being able to provide support and resources independently of whether or not you identify with their experiences or not.
It's true belonging.
Right. And it's like, I'm tired of hearing the cookie cutter stories and celebrating the people who are oftentimes the only ones we ever made to hear about. I think that real care is equitable, right? It meets you where you are and it gives you an opportunity to have all the access to the resources you need to have an equitable outcome. So for me, it's like, food insecurity, gym deserts, obesity, mental health resources, maternal health, fibroids. If we're talking about like addiction, substance abuse, if we're talking about just the idea of like heart disease and how to combat that, like to me, that's what care is. It's providing resources and support in all of those ways and allowing the practitioners who have the community's best interests at heart to be the first one at the table leading the conversation. So I'm really excited. And yeah, I'm just going to continue to do the work because, before me, there was somebody else who really cared about it, right? And after me, there really will continue to be. And I think my job is between my time on this place and my time not here to support everyone else in terms of ensuring that they feel cared for. That's really what it's about.
I love that. You're doing so many things. What is next for you? Like, what's in the next few months? Like, what are you working on? How can we support you?
Being a bad bitch.
That too?
Yeah, keep that in there, KB. I'm joking.
We will make sure that we put that in the show notes to continue to support you in being a bad bitch.
No, I'm joking. I would say what's next for me. I think I mentioned earlier as a running coach, for me, it's the most accessible sport. It is for me. I take it personally in terms of feeling challenged to encourage as many people as possible to get into the sport of running. If you're an able-bodied person, let's make sure you know and feel confident and feel supported in your ability to put one foot in front of the other, rapidly, 1 foot at a time, right? So getting more people to move, right? That's really, really important to me. And running is very much the lens that I want to like motivate people to do it through or in. Outside of that, yeah, we have a really huge September wellness festival coming up.
Okay.
I'm really, really excited about it. It's going to be in Brooklyn, New York City. It's going to be here. We're got some celebrity talent involved. We got some very visible people who are pulling up to support and have a presence there. But the outcome, again, is all about caring for community. So I think, for me, it's really about being at the forefront of those types of conversations and continuing to build out this universe of care where Black joy and our experiences are very much centered. And everybody else could just deal with that however they want to deal with that.
I feel like there's nothing else to say.
Yeah, that's really it. Yo, KB, I want to tell you, I'm really happy for you. Like, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
I'm here. It's this lovely home. It's nice furniture. It's all pretty in here. I feel more expensive just walking in here. Like, I feel like I got like a jump in my credit score by like 100 points. Even though I don't even know that's possible because my credit score.
Even though you were late, so your credit score should be going down.
I mean,
He was over an hour late, y'all.
I was defying stereotypes, okay? I was manifesting care in a way. I don't know. I'm bullshitting now.
I can hear you just putting all the words together.
I don't know. I don't even know. I'm sorry. I did apologize, though.
You did.
And I did communicate because I got in the Uber and I was good money. And then getting to the bridge, it was a lot. Getting through Harlem was hard. Getting out of the city was harder. Like, once we got out of Harlem, going down the West Side Highway and trying to get over to the tunnel, it was like a thing.
I'm happy that you made it, though.
I'm happy I came.
Yes. So with that, y'all, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, KB. This is mad fun. I feel like I'm like officially a bad bitch now. Like, I made it to KB's show. I only like the most beautiful people sit here. So now, like, I feel like I'm one of them. Like,
y'all,
that's like a real thing.
This is what happens when you have friends from college.
Seriously, like every time I look at your show, it's like you a baddie and you sitting down with a baddie. And I was just like, yo, like, I just want to watch and tune in so I can learn something. And now I'm sitting here like a baddie. Like, I feel like
you made it, Mama. You made it.
I'm just saying, like, I feel like, you've created a safe space for the baddies. So I appreciate you.
I can't. With that, y'all, may your next move be your very best move. Have a great day.
Peace.